on behalf of Marketing Interactive and Shopify for a very timely discussion on delivering on CX. I'm just going to run through kind of the proceedings for today. It's pretty informal, but I still need to do it.
Founder of Tier 1 Entertainment. We're also the co-owner. I'm also the co-owner of Blacklist International. So basically, for those of you who don't have an idea about what we do, we see ourselves as a gaming media conglomerate of some sort, where we have a talent management, where we handle 1,000 KOLs across Southeast Asia, with gaming as the common denominator. We also have a production house that puts up reality shows in ABS-CBN and other shows online about gaming and esports. And lastly, we have an esports team that competes in different titles around the world. So generally for Tier 1 Entertainment, I think there are a lot of challenges just because at the end of the day, we're a startup and we are a venture-backed company. So when you are a venture-backed company, obviously like the metrics are different for you. It's always about speed and scalability. But the thing is, like in this environment of technically an almost economic recession, right? Like it's just difficult to find growth in terms of top line gross revenues. However, like as a CEO, you always need to find ways to be able to shift your direction and find opportunities. But at the same time, I think the biggest challenge is for the rest of your team to understand how to operationalize that new direction. Because just to give an example, right? Like in terms of the whole pandemic, we really thrived during that time because live stream was kind of like the biggest content that people were consuming back then. But with the rise of TikTok and shorts came in, you know, like the attention span just changed a whole lot from before they were okay with watching a 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour live stream to now a 30-seconder TikTok to a 15-seconder reel or something like that, right? So imagine the amount of change in attention span has moved so much. And we all know that in the company. But the problem is how do you change your processes and your infrastructure to that? Because if you have a marketing that is more built on graphics, how do you change that, right? And then if you have a marketing group of creatives that mostly does a lot of documentaries and long-form video formats, how do you change that from just a mobile editing app supposedly for TikToks and Reels, right? So I think the whole change in the social media landscape is one big challenge. The economic landscape is another challenge, and I think the last challenge was me trying to eat that ship and not distracting anyone. Because like it was really delicious. Yeah, it was delicious. Try it, but it was pretty noisy, so I was really doing my best to not distract anyone.
Warn you guys ahead of time. Yeah. So,
yeah. So yeah, that's it for me. But I'm just happy to be here and hear all of your sentiments as well.
Evolving so quickly, and to some extent, when technology comes here, we adopt it very quickly. I think their expectations are very global in nature, and they change faster than we could imagine.
Omni, right? Because people want to be recognized, regardless of the store they're in, and they want to earn points whether that's online or offline. So that's the next challenge of businesses like us who goes both online and offline. So we're updating, Boss FS, Bobbies, and all that. So yeah.
Everyone is in the business of trying to get people's attention, right? Like that's what we are about. And I think that's where a lot of the KOL or influencer marketing has come into play. Because from when we started out in 2017, we started with around 12 to 24 KOLs. Today we have 1,000. So at least from my perspective, what I see is that KOLs are really a big part of the future that we are in now, just because they have a certain realm of influence around the communities that they have, right? And I think it's very important for us to understand how do we truly utilize these KOLs, because For one, I think what people don't see is that when we are working with KOLs, we're not just working with them just for their demographic or just for the certain level of awareness or engagements that they can get, but it's also the credibility that they build, like the values, the stories that people followed along the years when they were following that KOL. So whenever I work with multiple clients nowadays, like there's always a conversation about affiliate marketing, and I believe I talked about this in Resa as well, because when people talk about affiliate marketing, and most brands see it as a perfect way to do it, because obviously, like you won't spend on anything, and at the same time, you will get as much reach as possible. If you have smaller KOLs, then that can work. But the problem there is, if you are on a mid-tier or like a high-tier KOL, the challenge becomes, what's your opportunity cost? Like if I take this up, I will spend this time and that time, and it's going to be very challenging for them. So imagine like trying to offer a mid-manager or like a C-suite level, like executive, and say, hey, join our company, and if you get this much gross profit margin, then that's the only time you'll get your salary. So, I mean, technically, that's the way you are conversing with that type of KOL. And sometimes brands don't understand that. So I think that's, for one, I think understanding the KOL in terms of like their psyche and its core is very important. I think that's one. Second, I think it's really understanding what distribution really is. Because like in the old times of marketing, when distribution was just TV, radio, newspaper, like it was easy. You put like, you approve a graphic, you approve a 15-second commercial, you put it out across the digital distribution that you have, and then you're good. But the problem now is you have Threads, you have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And it's not just a difference in terms of format, it's a difference in terms of consumption, in terms of behavior, right? And that's why I'm gonna go back to the KOL as an important way to distribute content and gather attention. It's because it's very difficult to localize a certain content for each of those distributions and to be able to tap a certain community without that influencer or that realm of influence around that person. So I think generally what I'm saying is that there are multiple tools compared to what we have before here in this digital world, but I think understanding what the landscape is, how do we utilize all of these tools, and what's available for us is really the most important for any customer experience. One last point. I think for me, when we started the business, it was really meant for a B2B play, in a way a B2B play, but we are a B2C marketing play, So when we started out, and I think I shared this story with the Shopify group, is that we tried to build a retail arm last year. So actually in 2021. So in 2021, because we had a team that was winning in Mobile Legends, we thought of, why don't we sell jerseys? So our team is popular. I mean, let's just sell jerseys. So when that was raised to me by my operations manager, I thought like that's just a waste of time, like it's a waste of capital. Why should we do it? But I just decided to support her, and then eventually that turned into a 25 million business in a year. So I think the story that I want to share there is not about the money, but it's the ease of doing business that the e-commerce companies have provided us. Imagine we were able to get 25 million revenues in just 2 SKUs with 100% e-commerce, which I think wasn't really available back then. Like before, you needed to put up a store, like register, a lot of things that you really needed to do. So I think the technological tools that are available to us is something of a gift, but we really need to be able to understand what that gift is.
Think about if, I have like more than 1,000 followers on Instagram, but if I have strangers messaging me, I might have a few seconds to reply them. I'm not a celebrity, right? So that means you can engage with those people. So like when you really post something about your life and they get to engage with you, you're a real life being in their life. So they would really trust this person's what they say. And if I only have 3,000 to 5,000 followers, that means I know I have nothing to bargain with the brand, right? So I could say, hey, Marty, do you want to collab with us? We can send you a set of free product and just post a whole reel about it, and doesn't have to necessarily be salesy, right? But you're gonna get a free product. So from the merchant side, it's basically sending out a lot of free products that might not even match up to paying a 2 million celebrity, but they could interact with, let's say, 500 nano influencers. Yeah. So especially in the Shopify world, a lot of these brands are not like those top brands. So when they are engaging with the market, they actually have the virtue or merit of interacting with the same size or the same kind of influence in the market. So that also goes back to what you were saying about organic, right? Because when people came from a free product sold, like given out, that's kind of like an organic job that you're driving by a more influential buyer. Yeah. So this is the thing that we see, and we also understand that a lot of these brands, they start to do collaboration. For example, we have an iPhone case, a phone case merchant that they're called Rhino Shield, and they collaborate with the Ghost Slayers, the Demon Slayers, and they collaborate with Pokemon. Yeah, so when they grow big to have enough of a market share, they basically have a lot of things to do. Yeah, so this is the idea that I can give you guys is when you look at your business in the long term, you also need to know where you want to be, let's say in 3 years and 5 years, but you also need to know where you're at right now. So you know who are the ones that can really collaborate with you. Even if I have a brand, let's say if I sell tea, or if I sell coffee, I want to compete with Lance. And then if I find Taylor Swift to be my endorsement, that wouldn't mean anything because I'm too tiny to be a thing to be seen in her life or for the followers, right? So yesterday I was talking to one of our Filipino merchant. They basically have a strong cosmetics, K Cosmetics, selling in the Philippines, offline. You can see them in Watson's and 7-Eleven, but they are trying to build their online the impression. And they were working with one of their partner, which is a celebrity that has 7 million followers. So she basically tries to drive traffic to that new brand that they're launching. But he's so frustrated because after a lot of promotion and a lot of reels posted, that public account of the new brand has 1,020 followers, which is not even 0.1% of 7 million. So I was telling him about the idea about how you work with nano influencers, how you look at your brand at this certain stage of the life and match it up with the people that you want to talk to. So this is something that we often talk about.
I'm also an influencer myself. The brands give me products, packages. The thing is that when I compare myself as a micro versus someone who is a mega influencer, they just post one thing about your brand, and people just sometimes they made aware about your brand, but are they really the brand ambassadors of your brand who they are talking to? Sometimes it also makes sense if the products you're offering is a lot relevant to what the brand ambassador or the influencer is posting about, right? So for me, as a micro, sometimes it's very nice for us with a startup brand to work with those micro influencers because they are more likely to advocate for your brand. They post more about your brand, also because they need something in return for them. They need the reach as well. So I think it's very it's somewhat in the middle. So you have to also have a balance, micro influencers and then mega influencers. But you want to work with if you're partnering with
buy those products to introduce to the consumer. So yeah, we get reaction from them and say, yeah, I know this store, or how much. And then I think that's where you mentioned about the organic, just simply replying to their queries. That's when you get hold of it, and then somehow you get to understand what they're really looking for. So it's more support to us, but driving them to the trade and using the trade to actually help us, help the brand.
At the end of the day, the shopper wants to shop wherever they are, right? If this so happen they're closer to Mitsukoshi, then they'll shop at Mitsukoshi or to SM Aura, right? And they would shop for different reasons. Like if it's raining, I would go to SM Aura because there's parking. I don't have to go out. But if it's on a weekend and I'm with my kids, we shop at High Street, right? Then, then we go to Rockwell, then we go to Mitsukoshi for different kind of reasons. So the answer is, it's not about, are my channels competing? Never. The purpose of your channels is accessibility and availability, right? And I learned a lot from Denise. Denise also shared earlier on availability. The store has a limit, but the e-com, you can afford to make it so big and make it your flagship store. which is our strategy right now for our .coms.
Or in Mitsukoshi to sell. It's not a must. It's not like, hey, you will definitely fail if you don't have a website. That's not the thing. But it's more like when you have a site, there's a chance for you to build the credibility. So the first step when you had a store hub that lists your product, that's probably a chance that you feel like, hey, if people come to me on Instagram, I want to guide them there, right? But the idea of that is, if you already have a site of only showing products, there's a chance that you could convey more message via that platform. On the other hand, if you want to do it on Shopee or Lazada, I think it's more limited. But we also do have merchants that they buy ads and land it on their Lazada and Shopee page. But you know it probably wouldn't make sense, right? Because the fact that Shopee and Lazada is paying Google and Meta to get traffic for you already, and you're helping them to do so, and also paying the take rate. So I'm not saying that you really have to succeed. No, that's not the thing. But it's more about like, how do you want to show up as a brand in the market to have this credibility, and also have a chance to let people know you more. So if I tell you, if I'm a really big coffee person and I like your brand, I like your coffee beans, why don't you give me a platform to like you more, to understand you more, and engage with you, so you can launch a loyalty program. You can come up with a community, like what the Good Cup is doing in Cebu, right? That's a perfect scenario of why. But if you find this is not necessary, that means your business right now, you don't need it. But what I hear so far is, if you already have data, a lot of data, and you have 4 people in your team, the first question for you right now is actually how you utilize these data. That's the most important thing that I hear from what you have right now. Rather than thinking about, hey, do I need a site? Why do I need a site? That's something that the data will persuade you in the future. Yeah.
I totally agree with what he said about availability is very important, right? But I think just coming from a different, like perspective, right? Like, obviously, if you have all the capital, all the branches are yours. Technically, that's the right approach. But what if there are 2 factors? Like, one is you have B2B partners, which are your resellers. And then what if there's an angle where not every store is yours? Then if an e-commerce play comes in, then the problem becomes there is a bit of a cannibalization that might happen between the B2B partner and the B2B customer. So like, I just want to ask, like, who has a certain business that has that? Because we actually thought about it. Because if we were to expand into like different markets like Visayas, Mindanao, like, because we have a local store now and 95% of our sales are online, 5% is only in the concept store, because it's just more of just a show, right? We thought of doing resellers, but the thinking is, why will they partner with us if our product is available nationwide online? So
Wasn't that the same, right? You don't want to cut off your resellers
but it
completely.
makes sense for them because when it comes to food, there's a certain proximity that you can deliver a certain food compared to, for example, an extension or a breaker, right? Like what I'm trying to say is that for every branch, there is a certain proximity of a customer for you if it was delivered or not. But if we're talking about like breakers, t-shirts, and all of these things, right? Like any person can order online, and if the main owner of the brand is selling it online, then you're also disrupting the market of the rest of your resellers and distributors in different markets. I'm not sure if I'm being able to convey what I'm trying to say.
That's the case actually for many of our brands, like Herschel.
Mm.
The Singapore distributor, a partner of Herschel and Hong Kong, are cross-bordering to Philippines.
Mm.
Right? But you see the deals is that we have exclusivity on the region for the offline, because there's a territory. The online has no territory.
So does that affect your sales?
It affects. But the point here is that the offline, right, the shopping malls would require to have some sort of exclusivity because that space is very expensive. The online, it doesn't matter. You can distribute your brand. You can be distributing directly. That's the case for us. We sell Herschel in Shopee Philippines and Lazada, but the global guys are also sharing online, right? And that's okay. We just have to fight, and we just have to drive the Filipino traffic into our store because we have better deals. Number one, it's in peso, not in US dollars, not in Singapore dollars. So we just have to play the game and know the rules of the game. The offline is a different rules, right? And then Denise I'm sure would have a different answer if it was someone else selling McDo product, but it's not a McDo store, right? That's a different question on offline. But in online, it's about access, and I agree to that. Aggregators spread it.
Since if you were seller internationally, it would take around a couple of weeks, and instead of buying it locally, you get it right away. So,
But I think it's also a conversation of conflict of interest. To be honest, like
It depends.
brand
Yeah.
that sells to possible resellers. If you go directly online, then technically you are beating the same market that you're after.
So I think in most markets, right, like multiple retail channels exist together, right? So when the first department stores came, like you can forget online, right? You take 20 years back. There's always this debate that the smaller mom and pop stores are going to die because the large organized retailers come and open this flashy store. It doesn't really happen, right? As a consumer, you find your sweet spot depending on the category, on when you go to the mall and when you go to the neighborhood store and when you order online and when you go offline. So I feel like in every category you have to be driven by the consumer. And the question really is your reseller able to reach consumers who are not yet ready to shop online? Or is your reseller able to deliver more sales, maybe at a lower profit, but able to get you market share? Every channel has a role to play. So if you look at a good brand, right, you go into a mall store and they're available in their own exclusive store, but they're also available in an SM retail, right? The reason is because their own store gives them control and ability to talk to the consumer directly, but SM probably gives them scale. They wouldn't be able to open that store justifiably with the right supply chain in multiple cities, but they would be able to get to multiple cities with a department retailer, right? So every channel has a different role to play, and some generate more sales, some generate a better connect with the consumer, some generate share, some just make you legit, right? If you're a new brand and you're sitting on a large department store shelf next to like an existing brand that automatically, you probably make no money there. The retailer's taking all the margin, but you still want to be there because you start looking credible. So you have to think about what the channel's doing for you and whether it's worth it.
I'll give you another perspective also. So where you're coming from is an online and then the rest. Ours is different. We started off really brick and mortar. So our customers are hardware stores. So imagine that 3,000, 5,000, 100 stores all over the Philippines, even in the far-flung area. So you have that already consistently ordering to you. Let's say you have an active of about 60%, 70% accounts and orders to you. So these are your loyal customers. That's actually part of your database, sales database. But during the pandemic, what happened is these stores are also not operating, remember? So what was the initial reaction? They also want to get into online. And you will be surprised when you go to Shopee and Lazada and you search, let's say, our brand, Firefly. You'll see our official store and you will see hardware stores. And most of these hardware stores who would open their online store are, let's say, our top accounts. When we talked about top accounts, they have a better rate in terms of discount. So imagine also how they offer in terms of discounts.
So there was a price protection.
No, there's no price protection because these are their initiative. As a brand, actually, my concern is more of the authenticity. Because as a consumer, the question would always be, is this fake? Is this real? So that's my concern as a brand. But of course, when you talk about a market share, you won't stop them because I'm not also operating SM is closed, my hardware is closed, but that's the initiative. My competition doesn't stop. But that, whatever they sell there, that's the market share. Which, to answer your question, is the market is really big. It caters to the different need. So honestly, some of the hardware stores, they were the first one who had that online store, not even us. So we're not the front runner. We only had Shopify, I think, midway through the pandemic. So the initial was...
What was the initial reaction when they saw you,
No, it
put
was
up
a
an
healthy
online store?
competition because at the end of the day, I'm not getting their market in a sense that I'm not putting ads to target their market. This is the whole entire market that I'm offering it to everyone.
Okay.
It's just that it's direct to my store. So as a brand, we had to be really cautious about this, knowing who are these people, or at least, kasi you can trace it who are the accounts, and make sure that they are really selling authentic product. Because if not, we will call them up. We will talk to Lazada. Lazada, can you please check this one? Because this is our protection for ourselves. But generally, given such situation, it's an open market. You cannot stop them. So the desire is really to stay, top of mind for your item. So it's really market share. So as a brand, I just have to reiterate really credibility. So I have to talk about that. So to be sure that I'm also safeguarded in that sense. But as a channel, you open it, we can't stop it.
So when I was there, e-commerce is a team. So we were present in Shopee, Lazada, and of course our own platform. But the priorities were different, and strategic management-wise, it was really different. So of course, priority would always be own platform. Why? Because number one, we want to protect our margins. With Shopee and Lazada, it's day-on-day sale, double-day sale, which is really how do I say, extracting so much promos and discount that in order for you to level the playing field, my gosh, your margins out the door, bye-bye. So, and what this really does for you is, for the marketplaces, it has, the traffic. But the challenge with own platform is we have to create our own traffic, thus inbound marketing, a lot of inbound marketing. That's why we do our own blogs, we do our own promos, but our priority for our own platform was really our loyal customers. So the offers that we don't do in marketplaces, we really offer to our exclusive Watson's members in our own platform. So you also have to differentiate your strategies, although you are in multiple platforms, differentiate, right? Our own platforms is really for our exclusive members. For others, okay, it's market share. Right?
So it's being available but with a different customized distribution
Yes.
strategy. The development on the retail side was just something that was an idea of our operations manager. So when we started expanding into Vietnam, Myanmar, Malaysia, Japan, the thinking was we start with the marketing team first. Like get creatives in, get the storytelling in, and then eventually that will attract influencers that will sign up with our talent management, right? But the thought process was also, it's the same composition of people that can create a Lazada or a Shopee. Because, it's the same team. Like, you would need the same creative team that will put up, like the promotional materials, the pricings and everything. And we can reutilize that same marketing team to be able to push the products that we actually produce in the Philippines. So we're actually starting it now where all of the items that we produce in the Philippines, given that Blacklist is global, our esports team is global, what ended up happening is the items from the Philippines you send out to Malaysia, Vietnam, the marketing team was reutilized to put up the Shopee's and Lazada's version of their e-commerce, and then eventually distribute it in those markets. And it's been working well. It's not like the Philippines yet, but it's picking up.
Well, one key takeaway for me really is all of us has different struggles, different problems to solve, but it all boils down to really being more creative and being resourceful. How are you going to be able to address that? Because it's not always just about putting more marketing money or getting just really more money. Sometimes you have to just be resourceful and think, what else can I actually use, or which am I underutilizing? So with that, it's really more on when you have a problem there, just find a solution and not worry about the problem some more. Yeah.
I guess the conclusion is get an agency or a third party to outsource everything, because we don't have an IT department. So yeah, that's my key takeaway.
My key takeaway is that the market is really big, as I mentioned earlier, and that having your product be available to the customers when and how they want it and when is most convenient for them is very important for you to capture them. That's a really good insight for me.
So learning for myself is I hear a lot of these business owners or high level managers, they have a lot of action items on the list. But when it comes down to this discussion, I think a lot of people give me an insight about we really need to sit down and think before we take any actions. Because if we really start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you probably will understand you should have done the 8th item first. And it would benefit the 1st to the 7th one, right? So you need to look through the list first to understand what are something that's the highest priority. Yeah, and that strategic part is something that when we have too many action items that we don't strategize. Yeah.
All the different ways to create these connections and reach every single one of these customers, whether they're here in the Philippines or even outside of Indonesia.
And yeah, being young and big market, there's a lot of opportunities. Here being inspired by SM and McDonald's 700 stores. So there's still a lot of work that can be done and that my team and I myself need to do.
So I think the key takeaway for me would be, I think for brands mainly, there is no longer a choice for them to pick and select the channels they want to be. It's more of a need, like being everywhere and anywhere, right? Because if you're not in a particular channel, you're basically allowing your competition to grow in the channel that you're not in. So, for example, if you don't have a site, a competitor could be building something up organically and building a site that you're not in. So it's something, that's what I'm thinking.
Nice.
Yeah. In addition to everyone's key takeaways, it's more on the experience. We should focus on the product and services. That's our edge, since we have a lot of competition, say offering a product. We should focus on the experience.
Nice.
It's probably quoted all around the world, but it's know your customer and everything else will follow. Bonus points for who can guess where that came from, but like it doesn't really matter much what channel they are, what trend they are in now. They always change. So brands also need to embrace change, and we don't need to overthink it. We can just experiment and let it go. But knowing what's out there, pinning things on what the customer likes and following that path, over time we'll arrive at what works.
So for me, coming from the entertainment and advertising business mostly, the two takeaways for me is I think first, the struggle for us to go online to offline is as difficult as the offline to online. So I haven't seen it on this level up until I came here. And I think the second is like after hearing everything that you talked about, I probably just want to stay online. But if I were to come into the offline world and get into the retailer, like distribution space, I would probably get a distribution strategist because it's just something I can't fully understand anymore. So that's where I'm coming from.
I was sitting there who organized it. Shout out.
Yeah, I certainly enjoyed it. You guys made my job very, very easy. I also learned so much. So really looking forward to putting the article together. So I won't be able to quote all of you, but if you do hear from us, we will give you an opportunity to make sure everything is factually accurate, etc. Other than that, please enjoy the weekend coming up and hopefully enjoy some conversation before you have to go back to the office. Thank you once again.
Thank you.